Hello there, Flip here, and today... Is it too late for sorries? Alright, I would like to formally apologize. New year, new me. Let's start this new year off right. Wait, we're a week away from March? Moving on, I'm going to try and wrap up everything I had for last year, hopefully quickly, so I can get into all the dumb ideas I have this year. That would include Tenha's Genshin court and the 3 Genshin therapies that have just been sitting on my hard drive. But enough rambling, let's actually start the video. So I asked you guys in my last very recent video to drop down your hot takes, and you guys definitely did. And let's also hope they haven't changed in a very short span of 2 months, as I'm going to be going over a majority of them now. And I have 72 screenshots, so this will be fun. Starting off with... Okay, so... YouTube decided to do this completely unnecessary thing where they gave people tags instead of just normal usernames. So now I'm going to have to read their tags instead. So coming in from user NZ20E6WPU, my hottest take is that Mr. Flip is not based. You know what? Honestly, fair enough. And International is kind of overrated at this point. Yes, it has good damage in both single and AoE scenarios, but so do a lot of other teams as well now. Ride National, Aggravate Hyperbloom, while also being a lot easier to play. I still sometimes use International in Abyss and know how to do the rotation properly, but I prefer other teams over it which are more easier to play and don't require me to do pinpoint accurate rotations. I know it offers a medium for skill expression, but sometimes I just want to relax and enjoy Unga Bunga gameplay. First comment in, and I'm already gonna have the result to sucking International's dick. But honestly, respectable. I don't like playing International, even though it probably still is one of the strongest teams in the game, I would say. But the main reason why it's held in such high regard by a lot of theory crafters is because it's basically uncounterable. No enemy is immune to both Hydro and Pyro, as well as the fact that you have Kazuha as well, and with all 3 of those elements, it's basically impossible to run into a shield you can't break. And depending on the situation, you have both sustained and front-loaded damage, and also Child is a bow character, meaning if a boss has a mechanic tied to shooting it, you get that coverage as well. You can basically fight almost everything in the game well with International and not get hard countered, more so than other teams and characters. Like, the biggest flaw with Inter is the fact that Child has fucking baby legs. Next comment from Nathan, what? Yanfei can be used as an on-field damage dealer to replace jangling in national teams. What? What? Do you mean to just run Yanfei Vaporize? That's fun, I like it more than playing Hu Tao. Don't know how that's a hot take, it's kind of just a fact. Next comment from Alex, I can tell by the profile picture, and he is saying the extremely sad truth that Klee is indeed not the original Raiden Shogun. How sad. Next comment. This is also a person I recognize, I think this is Tammy, who says C6 Sucrose is better than... I can't fucking read. C6 Sucrose is a better unit than C0 Kazuha. Is that even a hot take anymore? Even Var said he thinks Sucrose is better than C0 Kazuha. I think casuals are starting to catch on at this point. I also agree with this, to be honest, especially now with Dendro. In almost all teams, Kazuha and Sucrose are 1-to-1. Sucrose also just has a lot more flexible rotations. And I think people actually overlook the fact that Sucrose and her rotations can just massively shoot up your damage in a team, where she can drive like Aggravate, Taser, or Hyperbloom. There's quite a big difference between just spamming normal attacks and cycling through her normals, charge attacks, and her E. And I think the fact that Sucrose is a really good driver is more valuable than Kazuha's damage buff in my opinion. Next. I love how I talk about how good I think Sucrose is to this. From FZHS, or if you're on my Discord server, Milo, and he says Sucrose and jangling are overrated. Okay. I disagree on Sucrose, but for jangling I can see an argument, and even then if jangling is overrated, she's still one of the best damage dealers in the game, so it really doesn't matter. Jangling and Bennett is just a straight up broken team core that can carry almost any 2 characters in the game as long as jangling gets energy. I don't know how in a game centered around elemental reactions that you think the character that can snapshot a Bennett's buff while also having no ICD to freely vape and chain reactions off field is overrated. And it's a bad thing. I do get that people love to meet right jangling, but it's jangling and she's great. Next comment from Zaki Man. I think Hu Tao and Ganyu are 2 extremely overrated characters. Hu Tao got sort of power crept in her role of single target DPS, and she's kind of just average now that there's so many other team options that are on par / better. Same for Ganyu, and she's only really good in niche cases. I'd even say characters like Tignari, Raiden, and Yai are arguably better at this point. And you know what? I kind of have to agree. As someone who's been defending Ganyu for the longest time, even though I do think she's still a good character and still will demolish the Abyss, I don't really know if I would still really recommend picking her up over someone like Raiden or even Yai currently. Same case with Hu Tao. Even though no team really beats Hu Tao in single target, even Hyper Bloom if you look at things practically, there are still other teams that do enough single target damage that don't dive cringe when there are more than 2 enemies. So yeah, I do kind of agree. Next comment. Fuck you, cuz. I'm not reading this. Let's break it down. Nilou is a top 5 DPS. I already disagree. I feel like people don't understand that Nilou isn't the DPS on her team. Sorry to get all actually, but Nilou is just an enabler. Moving on, he talks about how he comes to his conclusion and how we compare DPS, but then he mentions speedrunning. And to be honest, I don't really like using speedruns as an example to say what's better than what. Not because I think speedruns are invalid, but because of 2 things. When talking about speedruns, we are already way past the point of investment I think is reasonable, as I only really like talking about how quickly someone can get to completing the Abyss, rather than how fast someone can just clear it. Also, speedrunning has its own defined meta that again won't apply to a lot of players, as you need near perfect characters to be able to top speedrunning charts even for C0 speedruns. Kazuha then mentions how Nilou is easy to team build, but I also disagree. I'm sorry, but Nilou with Barbara is doo-doo-dookie dog shit. I'm just gonna say it. It makes Nilou more conditional by having to rely on Barbara's puny radius. So Nilou really wants a Kokomi. I mean, you can also use Nahida too if you have fast enough Hydro, but for a Nilou team that doesn't suck, you're almost always looking at 2 other limited characters, whether that's Hytham, Nahida, Yelan, or Kokomi, and your lost is going to be like Jingcho or Yao Yao. And even on top of that, Iron Sting kind of just hurts the rest of the team. Giving Nilou more EM for nothing in return isn't that great when she isn't even triggering a significant amount of blooms. For 4-star weapons, Xiphos is what you would want, as even at R1 you give a lot of energy to the extremely energy hungry teammates Nilou runs. Favonius also could work if you have a decent amount of crit subs. And also, it's not that I don't like Nilou at all, it's just that for what she takes I'd expect more for essentially a mob clearer. Compared to other teams that cost less, Nilou teams can just cliff a lot harder. But still, don't get me wrong, she is still extremely strong, but I just wouldn't tell anyone to roll her until they have a lot of options. She kind of feels like Venti in a way. Next comment. Okay, it's another Sucrose comment. I'm sorry, Piro, but I'm just gonna save time and just respond. I disagree. This Sucrose thing has got to stop. She has a very strong initial pull, but the only problem is that she targets where enemies already are, so it does feel like she does nothing sometimes. But that is just more on you to position better. Next comment from Vane. Prototype Amber Nahida is underrated. In Keqing, Kazuha, and I can't speak. So Keqing aggravate basically, and I wouldn't say this is a hot take really. Most people just don't know that Nahida can run Prototype Amber and be fine. And if you don't want to build a Yaya, then this is a good alternative while also having all of Nahida's quality of life. Next. Wow, from Yarki, Ganyu is the support. No, not really. Next. From Kokaniki, I butchered that. So they say Yelan is better than Kazuha, and you know what? Based. Hydro is just a much more valuable element than Onoma at this point in the game, and Yelan also enables double Hydro, which is just seemingly getting better. And I know it just sounds like I've been shitting on Kazuha this whole video, which I am, but Kazuha again is still very strong. Trying to say otherwise is practically blasphemy. And like Yelan, Sucrose, and whoever you usually compare him to, they're all top tier characters. It's like comparing diamonds to pearls at this point. And you guys are probably tired of me saying next, so let's go German. Nächster Kommentar. From Eufem, Zhao Hypercarry with C6 Varazan is a top tier team. That isn't a hot take, that should just be common sense. Nächster Kommentar. Oh wait, apparently it's Nächster Kommentar.
Nächster Kommentar.
I'm still butchering it, but like, I'm close. From Tactician, Mono Geo teams are actually very good. Nilou at C0 with her signature is probably one of the best AoE teams in the game. I do agree with the second part, Nilou Bloom teams have nutty AoE, especially with their signature. Regarding Mono Geo, I'm just gonna say it's pretty average now. I don't think it's necessarily that good. Like, even if you just compare Ito to Zhao, who just got Farazan, and Farazan is amazing for Zhao, I would be more inclined to tell people to get Zhao instead. The problem with Mono Geo is that it's just kind of stagnated while other teams have gotten better. Nice der Kommentar from AMV bro, and this comment is amazing. Zhongli is the most useless character in Genshin, and whoever says otherwise has skill issues and is giving me excessive anxiety. I am talking to you, Zhongli Simps, he is a D tier. Also, Sucrose is just a better unit in international and national Taser, Hyperbloom, Soup, and every reaction based team that needs EM compared to Kazuha. And whoever says otherwise just has skill issues and don't know how to use her. I'm not taking any criticism from Kazuha mains. Okay, as much as I don't like Zhongli, I wouldn't say he's useless. He has some uses as a great filler slot for some 3-man teams like Double Hydra Hu Tao. Also, Xinyan exists. And I think I've talked quite a lot about Sucrose and Kazuha for now, and I don't think I can add anything meaningful. Nice there. From insert's name here, Shatter is the best reaction in the game, and Fischl is better as an on-field damage dealer. And you know what, from that emoji at the end, you can just tell he was feeling a tiny bit devious when he wrote this. And I'ma just have to agree, all facts. Shatter absolutely shatters the competition when it comes to reactions, unfortunately. You know what, I feel bad for the Germans, let's switch to French. Commentare suivant. Guilty Oregano says Electro is the best element in the game. Not even I can decry Electro this much. Commentaire suivant. From user IP Grabber. From a meta perspective, Zhongli is the worst Archon in the game, and the difference between the other three and him isn't close at all. And second hot take, Eula is standard banner material. I actually disagree with that. First, I don't necessarily think the standard banner determines the quality of a unit, because Keqing and Tignori are quite strong, a lot more so than the other limited characters. And also Eula's constellations. I don't know if it would be a good business decision to give players access to Eula C6 at any time. Commentaire suivant. From Dan4455, Yai EEE takes field time to use, doesn't snapshot, while Chad Fischl is eternal, just tappy and every 10 seconds Q, gives electro particles guaranteed, and can snapshot. Virgin Yai versus Chad Fischl, case closed, boom, explosion. If this was just a roundabout way of saying Fischl is better than Yai, of course I agree with you. But this is also like saying Windows is better than Mac. Like, I expected hotter takes from you guys. Next. From Ibrahim, I think after Dendro, Bennett, and Kazuha lost a lot of their value, because Hyperbloom, Spread, Aggravate, and other Dent reactions are so good. I agree and disagree. Kazuha did benefit from Dendro to an extent, as he's quite good as your foot slot to an Aggravate team. And also, because of how versatile both Bennett and Kazuha are, even if Aggravate takes away a Kuki, Yelan, or Jingqiu away from them, they just have so many options and will probably build up your second team. For Bennett and Kazuha to lose a lot of value, you would have to be able to create two Dendro teams that both use different characters that somehow is better than just having a Bennett or Kazuha team, which I think for most people isn't that possible. So I wouldn't necessarily say they lost a lot of value, just some I guess, since not every character is competing for them. Next. From Game Ultraman 7, I think Ayato is far better pull for most accounts than Child, given how much more versatile and easy to understand and use he is. Child has one amazing team, Ayato is good in almost any team. He's also god tier in Overworld for casual exploration. Okay, it depends. Ayato would be ultimate versatility, being able to go on an extremely wide variety of teams that need a Hydra unit, and then Child would just be ultimate strength, being fit on one of the strongest teams in the game. So it really would depend on what you value more. What fucking language do I go next? You know what, I'm a weeb, let's do Japanese. Sugi no commento. From Arrows, Kuki is better than Hoot. Whoa! Hyperbloom is easier to play, beats a wider range of enemies, and is more consistent than Caesar or Hu Tao with 4 stars. I wouldn't necessarily say Kuki is better than Hu Tao, but I do get what you are saying. The only point I don't really understand is beating a wider range of enemies. I feel like they have the same amount of coverage. Anyways, Sugi no commento. Another Kazuha comment. Next. Oh, it's from Sumi. We already talked. I was on call with him when he wrote this. So he isn't really talking about damage here, but more so how the teams play and how they synergize. Which I do agree with, that Kuki feels way better to use in Hyperbloom more so than Raiden, due to the reasons listed. Sugi. Now from Marco last name, what a friendly looking dog. People underestimate how flexible Child can be as a Hydro enabler outside of international, because they're way too lazy to learn new / harder rotations. I actually don't necessarily think it's because of that, it's more of the principle just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Child can definitely be used outside of international, but is that going to be better than just like using Xingqiu? Sugi. From Macadamia, Rational isn't even close to being one of the best teams. Fair enough. I would agree, and even in terms of quality of life, I prefer Sucrose National to Raiden National for the grouping. Not saying Rational is necessarily bad, but how many other Raiden teams are there? Next, from... Is it Jill or... Anyways. C6 or Bennett now! He doesn't ruin anything, Pyroula is still pretty OP. I'm honestly still waiting for C6 Bennett to ruin a relevant team comp. There isn't that many characters that just care about fucking auto-attacking, and most that do have permanent infusions regardless. From Rudy, Kazuha is better than Sucrose in every scenario, not because of numbers but because you can't miss your elemental burst. Skill issue. Coming in from Victor Joestar, the protagonist of JoJo's Part 11, he says sack weapons are greater than Favonius weapons, 5 times over. Damn, this new JoJo part is shit. I have to really disagree here. Even now, with how strict rotations are with almost all Dendro teams, having to cast the second E for particles is just not worth it. Of course, there are always going to be exceptions, but for a majority of characters, if you have to choose between Favonius and Sack, you almost always want Favonius. And how about we go Chinese next, sure.
下一条评论
Actually, how about back to English? English is good. Next comment. Oh my fucking god, really? Diluc is more fun that. Nice grammar. Diluc is more fun than all the other Pyro DPS. And you are sadly incorrect because Yanfei exists and clears by far. Next. From Daria? Candice Taser is better than Sucrose Taser. That is certainly a take. And no, I mean in the team listed you're using Beidou. I guess Kazuha's plunge can block Beidou's discharges, and then you'd auto attack, but counting the time from his burst, and Kazuha being a way worse driver than Sucrose while Candice also has negative damage, I just don't see a way it can be better. Next. From Macadamia again, Jinan is the absolute best character in the whole game. She has the ability to apply Pyro and creates an amazing shield. Her burst exists and can be used for incredible nuking. She has 2 good paths to build her for either defense or attack. She is also totally amazing compared to pathetic characters like Zhangling, Bennett, and Zhangling Upgrade. She can even buff allies by buffing physical damage. Competing with Sekka for having the best take ever.
In essence, what's really funny is Klee is actually the original Raiden Shogun.
Next. From Raiden Dog, C0 Raiden is the most overhyped character in the game by far. And again, being a decent 5-star, you've signed away your rights away from not being overhyped. It just goes hand in hand. I again do disagree with her being the most overhyped, but you can make a point for it. I've talked to quite a bit of people, and most people now think it's not even worth building C0 Raiden if you aren't going for a Hyper Bloom, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. However, I'm not converting to Satanism. Get your EM Raidens away from me. But yeah, next. Kaya Physical is not played enough. It's fun, cheap, and a reliable comp for a lot of the late game areas. Definitely not an Abyss comp, but a fun comp. It's actually surprising because with Kaya's charge attack scalings, that if I'm not mistaken are higher than Keqing's, if you do want to make a character a physical carry, Kaya is one of the better ones to do so on. So yeah, I can see it. Next. From Chills, with the addition of Dendro, the floor for 36 already Abyss teams has become so low that if you still can't handle Abyss, you're just bad. I mean, would you say this to like an AR40 player? I do agree, team building now is easier than ever with Dendro. It's basically almost going to be one side is a Dendro team and the other is a Bennett team like National. But at the same time, especially if you don't have the time, I'm sorry, but getting enough resources and being lucky enough to have passable characters can be a problem even if you do know what you're doing. There can just be a massive resource bottleneck that a lot of new players face. Next, and this one is from Ceres. Variety in roles that can be filled is greater than meta. For example, Ganyu freezes strong, Ayaka freezes stronger, but pulling Ganyu is better because she has more teams and more roles. Okay, so this again is just the argument of strength versus flexibility, which is also extremely account dependent. Let's use again your Ayaka and Ganyu example. You say Ganyu is more flexible, but what if you've pulled Ito and have a solid Mono Geo team? Again, would Ganyu's versatility there matter over just having Ayaka share strength to carry the other side? It's really hard to evaluate strength over versatility because it's almost always case by case. Alright, fuck it, let's try the Chinese. Jia Yi Tai Ping Lun. Oh my fucking god, it's his Depte Zhao himself. There will come a day when you will finally understand the greatness of King Seka. Then you'll find that he is the one true king, the one who is the avatar of God himself, who will save the world from illogical Genshin creators like Tenten, who only think about... I fucked up. Who will save the world from illogical Genshin creators like Tenten, who only thinks about the present and is not able to foresee the future. From Delta Species, Kazuha is the most... From fucking nuclear launch codes, Genshin TCG is a fairly divisive feature. I said hot takes, not bleak statement. Jia Yital. Oh wow, this is a lot. From Joel Ajitan. Funa Rational is a top 5 team. Not gonna lie, I don't even think it's the best double Hydro Hu Tao team, let alone a top 5 team in the game. Raiden is a top 5 character. I don't think I would put her above Bennett, the 2 Onimos, Fischl as you mentioned, and then the fucking bull cuts. She has too much competition. Yulan is better than Jingcho. I can honestly see it. And lastly, Eula is overhated. She's not that bad. Can Hoyo give us a Eula rerun so I can talk about her, please? It's been long enough, and you know, pairing the physical carry with the physical support makes a lot more sense than the Mickey Mouse decision to have Mika run alongside Shenhe and Ayaka. Jaital. From Amos. Not a hot take, but every time I use Sucrose I flop. When I switch her with Kazuha I destroy everything though. I don't know what I'm doing wrong with Sucrose, but she's not serving me. I mean, I can't exactly see what you are doing, so there could be hundreds of different micro issues going on. But assuming you have 4 VV and triple EM, as long as your Sucrose is leveled up and you're like pressing E, you should be fine. And also Sucrose and Kazuha also have slightly different rotations, so if you are pivoting through them the same way, it might be messing you up, I guess. Jai Tao Pinglun. Oh, it's the fucking rip-off Deerstar again. Tignari is the best standard banner 5-star. Also the best at talking to minors too, actually. And for the best standard character, it is between Keqing and Tignari, and both of them basically do the same thing. They are a slot on an aggravate team and you can also use them together. Both of them are optimally replaced by another 5-star. I just think that people who replace Tignari, being Alhaitham and Nahida, would be a lot better than the people who replace Keqing. So I would say Keqing is the best currently, but they're basically equal. Jaital. From Matt. They say Zhangling is the best character. Nah, she's kinda shit to be honest. What the fuck is with these Zhangling stands? Has Tenten just brain-rotted everyone? Next. I think the community underrates and shits on Zhao way too much. He's way better than most people think, and they have massive misconception about him. I agree, especially if you have C6 Farzan. Zhao is one of the best hyper carries in the game, no doubt. And you can definitely feel the 2-month gap, because I think most people now would agree with this. Next. From fucking Lord Thanos himself apparently. Didn't know Thanos was a fan of mid. But they say I think Zhongli is quite underrated by the meta community, especially when so many characters need him to stay alive to do damage like Yoimiya, Hu Tao, Ganyu, and Zhao. As someone with a very positive opinion on Zhongli, I can understand your point, but I don't agree. Okay, well I do think that Zhongli does have a lot more staple uses with the double Hydro Core and being a solid defensive option for Aggravate, but I still wouldn't say he's worth it enough for the pull. If you are looking to be like as optimal as possible, that is. Next. From what the fuck is that name? From soon to be behind bars. To summarize, they say Rational is overrated because it loses out in single target to other teams, has bad AoE, and the point I don't really get is if you replace Raiden in Rational, your units have higher energy requirements so they aren't as versatile. But you can also do this wonderful thing called switching your build slightly, but makes enough sense. Next comment, which is also from them, and they say, holy fuck. Kaya, Rosaria, Sucrose, and Sai are the most overlooked units in the game. I feel like people respect Sucrose, the other 3 I agree with though. I'd say units like Layla and Hazel are overhated. Not overhated, no one just cares about them meta-wise. Dory, C0 Farzan, and Candace are still bad though. Fair, I guess. In terms of value, Nahida is overrated since DMC and Kole are also viable. It depends if you only play Aggravate like I do, then I would agree you can just use Yao, but if you are planning to use Hyper Bloom long term, it really is night and day through not having Nahida. And lastly, their hottest take. A good theory crafter is someone who makes the best out of a unit instead of straight up comparing them to other units. Sure, you can conclude X is bad, but at least tell how to build X to people who want to play them. Okay, I get what you mean, I just feel like this is phrased badly. I think if someone wants to play someone, you should always tell them how to play said character instead of just giving them meta options if they aren't interested. But if someone was to ask how good is X character or should I pull X character, if the character is like fucking Candice, I feel like it's worse if you try and not tell them that she just sucks. Anyways, next. From Rose, Zhangling is carried by Bennett. Not really a hot take whatsoever. Next. From Isasu Alfaro. I butchered that, I'm so... Anyways, Bennett, Zhangling, Jingqiu are characters that in their unbalanced state ruin the game. It is not good that almost any strong comp needs one or many of them. And that many other characters are in the trash bin because they're so OP. I do agree that because Bennett, Zhangling and Jingqiu are this strong that it kills a lot of characters' viability, but at the same time I would not want to play a game where Bennett, Zhangling and Jingqiu aren't this strong. That would also be like death to free-to-play runs, so I do agree, but I honestly wouldn't want to change. Next. And this one comes from Johan, who says if you're new on Genshin and you get Jingqiu, kick him in the for future AR-50 dumpster and use Kaya as sub DPS, because Kaya at least doesn't have to cry for C6 or plus 220% energy recharge that you can't get because you are new. The ice dude even gets energy recharge by himself as a stat and gets more particles if you freeze enemies and even self-healing. All that at C0, unlike Jingqiu who gets ice cube mode into the oblivion by touching dragon spine and be the bottom for those Twitter Chongu and Yaoi shipping creatures. But if you don't like that, sure man, pay attention to those meta players who think you have Jingqiu, then you have C6 with Sack Sword R5. Jingqiu is a 6 stars, ooh, just skip Yulan, she's worst. Have a good day being all frosty 2 times per rotation using Sack Sword. It's still going, if you can win your 50-50 of course, or watching your dude being unable to get 10 points of energy because you believe everything you hear from a random gotcha whale. Good night. I have never read a more least coherent comment, but if the gist of what you're saying is to build Kaya, then I can get behind it. Next. Oh, it's this one. So a drugged Sekapoko fan must have came in with a blinding rage in my comment section, and what a better way to end my return by reading this. I'm not gonna tell anyone to stay for this at all. So if you want to, you can watch me read this after I do my outro. And on that note, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe and comment. Not this. And I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace. I'm just gonna read this as fast as I can. Sakapogo is the most accurate, credible, and insightful streamer for meta-related content in the game Genshin Impact. Due to his high level of knowledge concerning team testing, theory crafting, and most notably his math degree, he consistently debunks common misconceptions such as Aika and Gonyu being strong, presenting informed academic and peer-verified explanations to Kai's strength, leading him to become one of the top crowd DPS characters in the current Abyss, nearly single-handedly shaping the Genshin Impact Spiral Abyss meta by forcing an entire set to be played by a single character, a feat never achieved by 4-star characters. His intellect and foresight in the Spiral Abyss meta can be demonstrated through his praising of the new Bloom 5-star mid-low, despite common community narratives painting the character as niche and poor for new players. Sekapoko once again disproves these baseless claims in the latest Abyss, with Nilou teams dominating both sides of the Abyss, completely one-shot. The Iron Blight Drake and Thunder Manifestation due to their strength in single target boss content. Wait, fuck. I'm lost. Where am I? Okay. Finally, Sekapogo single-handedly invented one of not only the strongest but also most versatile team, being strong against both AoE and single target content. As this team excels in wiping both extensive waves of enemies and a single large boss, this team is widely considered one of the strongest teams in the Spiral Abyss meta, above other names such as Physical, Zhongli, and Eula. Additionally, this team is extremely beginner friendly, requiring no 5-star characters and being easy to play, as enemies sparsely interact with Uemiya's attack pattern, causing this composition to be a must build for any Genshin account. Thus, Sekapoko successfully distinguished Uemiya as an extremely powerful and meta-pyro DPS. outclassing the likes of Amber and Tova and Raiden Shokin, influencing community perception so much that the recent Yoimiya rerun was the highest grossing banner in Genshin Impact history. In conclusion, Sekapoko is one of the most innovative, trustworthy, and scientific theory crafters in the Genshin Impact community. So much so that the word theory craft is probably trademarked as Sekapoko's exclusive term. I'm actually fucking crying. The words of the